I am terrified of having a new partner. Just thinking about it actually gives me heart palpitations.
Survivor Revive sat down with 5 survivors of sexual trauma.
Hello, my name is Stephanie, and I am a survivor.
Hi, I'm Alexandra, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, my name is Thormaline, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, my name is Leah, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, my name is Susy, and I'm a survivor.
To discuss their experiences with dating after abuse.
You have to trust your gut because you become more aware of people, their intentions, the type of energies that they present to you. You have to depend on how that person makes you feel. Don't shrug off little bits of their personality that you're like, oh, I can overlook that. Because it's those little pieces that we overlook that eventually come back and haunt you.
Here is what they had to say.
I think some of the complexities regarding dating is already you are just learning about the other person and trying to balance how much to share about yourself and how much to really be open with the other person. And I think that is as difficult in any relationship, whether that is dating in a romantic style or even having a new friend or being married later on or in a long-term relationship. It's really hard to balance having to know what part is going to be comfortable and also when to say certain things. I think one of the difficult things is knowing when you're being too vulnerable too quickly and you don't want to scare the other individual off or make them uncomfortable. So I think that is one of the biggest things is trying to balance for you as an individual how much you are personally willing to share with the other person and at what time you are most comfortable.
My complexities are actually fear, not trusting, and I feel like I need a safe space or something, and I feel like a lot of men are not respecting my boundaries. So it always, when I was dating and the guy broke my boundary again, it was not active practicing consent. I feel like I don't want to date for a little while. So I always like kind of walk with this fear of like someone would rape me again, you know. So this is my complexity, and since I have a severe PTSD and I already did a lot work on it, but still I get also like aggressions if people overstep my boundary, especially in dating. So this is why I do Krav Maga, because I need to get this anger out, you know. So, and the positive side is I can kick asses. So but yeah, and once I actually used it when a guy was overstepping my boundary, and yeah, I could handle him, you know, thanks to Krav Maga. But I think with consent seeking, we wouldn't need to handle this, you know, like, or defend ourselves. If the society would make consent mainstream, I think it would solve a lot of things. Yeah.
I think that before you go through an experience, we're all very sympathetic to a lot of these experiences. But once you become a survivor of such a traumatic experience, you become more sensitive to like things that any other person would deem as not that serious. So when you're getting to know someone and they make slight jokes or they have opinions that prior to being a survivor you would probably not consider as triggering. So it gets hard getting to know someone and realizing that they make these little comments or remarks, or they hold these little opinions that you can only relate to really fully when you've gone through that experience, you know. So getting to know people when you're trying to get back into dating as a survivor, I think, is really challenging because you're always caught in between sharing your experience so that the person can be more sensitive to what they say and how they act around you, but also making sure that that experience is not one, like Stephanie said, one that scares the person off. So it's always a battle, and more often than not, in my experience, is, and this is not advice I would give anyone because it's not a healthy take per se, but there are times when you kind of have to do things that you survive, although they're not per se the best course of action. Is either I just don't, or sometimes I just choose not to, because since my experience, I have not been in a relationship with someone per se. Well, at least not a fully matured relationship, because every time when we get there, when we have these conversations, there are always a few remarks that throw you off. And sure, you could explain to the person and be like, this is why I don't think that happens. But especially now, everyone is so sensitive about conversations. And if you have a conversation that you have an experience in, you're more likely to be called, what is the term they use? Snowflake. And sometimes you're not comfortable enough to explain why that said thing sets you off. So they just think you're being overly sensitive without fully understanding where you're coming from.
So my experience, dating is complex anyway, because it's, you know, trying to get to know someone else. And then of course, if you have a history of trauma in your background, it makes it that much harder because you are hyper alert to certain things that happen around you. And so for me, I have, I just kind of put it all out there to begin with, um, because it's my truth, and I don't really worry about um, the other person's response to it. Or actually, no, I'm looking for the response. If they can't accept it, then that's probably not someone that I want to continue to date anyway. If they have anything negative to say, if they feel uncomfortable by it, that's a good indicator that we're not equally yoked. So for me, what I found, communication just straight out the gate is the best thing, because you'll save yourself time and energy in the long run. Um, and you might find somebody good as well, somebody that's an ally and that will understand. So um, yeah, that's my take on complexities of dating while being a survivor.
Complexities of dating. Um, I feel, yeah, as it is, it's hard to date anyway. I am a woman in my 30s. I am plus sized. I still live at home with my family. But I love having that, being able to be with them still. But anyway, but now the complexities of dating after an assault, it's hard for me to trust people, trust men. So it scares me thinking about having a new partner and giving them my trust, and then also being honest about what I'm feeling. um I'm still trying to figure out, my boundaries um and limitations. So it's really hard for me to openly say this is uncomfortable for me, or just being honest about like what I'm feeling at the moment. So yeah, dating is very complex. It's very it's difficult right now. So hopefully, once I figure out exactly my boundaries and what I need, it'll get easier over time.
This is an interesting question, specifically because I only dated really two individuals, one before my current husband. So I think back to the first time I dated someone and in high school, and since my abuser was in the home, I started off by preventing the individual from coming over to my house, but eventually they had to meet that individual, and I kind of watched how they reacted to that individual as the individual was actively abusing me, verbal and emotional abuse in the home in front of my partner. That individual, that partner that I had was not able to take it and actually played on with my parents and started to agree with them. They just didn't know how to act. And that started to turn into more of it started to turn into almost like a domestic abuse in that sense. So thankfully, I was very thankful that that relationship eventually ended. And then when I met my husband, I tried to do the same thing. I prevented my current husband from meeting my family, but I knew it was going to happen at some point. And then I think what changed and made me know that I was able to be with my partner was because we went into the home, and first thing, that parent said something very disrespectful about me, and my partner disagreed and stood up for me. And I was so in shock because no one had ever stood up for me before. And from then on, I think it was important for not just me to be open, but also to problem solve with them, even though they themselves did not have a background in trauma, and they came from a very loving family. Through starting to form that trust and learning how to love myself and eventually love him, I was able to realize that this was a appropriate relationship to be in now for the rest of my life. Obviously, I was very, very blessed for that to happen because my partner literally saved me from that abuse and was able to take me out of that home. But for individuals that is not possible, it's hard. It's hard to know when I'm trying to make friends. I'm also in that part of, do I share what happened? And I've decided, yes, I do, because I want someone to support me and to know my trauma. I realize is so much part of me, and it's developed into, it's caused me to be who I am. So I want someone to believe in me and support me when I'm in my highs and also in my lows.
How do I know when I'm ready to date again? Since my abuse, not my abuse, but the abuse was done to me, was when I was 14, the first. In the beginning, I had the feeling, I felt like my body, or people, like the man, treated me like my body has no value, disrespected me. And I got this feeling that someone can take me how they want. And I realized, but there was something strong in me, said, this is wrong. This is what society, like patriarchy, makes you to think. And this is not how it is. Your body is valuable. And it took me a long time to learn that, actually, that I love myself, and making my self-love, strengthen it, and feeling actually, that I love myself, because my parents actually didn't give me the feeling. Because also when the first tried rape happened when I was 14, they didn't believe me. So not trusting also in men, I didn't trust it in my parents. And I think I was kind of fine. And then when I was 25, a guy raped me. And after this, it was really hard. I had a boyfriend, and I think I broke up with him a lot of times. So it was really hard to go back to dating. Then I started Krav Maga, developed this really strong PTSD, and after the abuse directly. And it's now 6 years ago. So when I broke then up with the boyfriend eventually, I had even dating him was hard, even seriously, even when you were together with him, it was hard. And but basically the last years I strengthened my self-love, and so now I know when my gut feeling tells me I want to date this guy, and it doesn't has to do something with me, because I'm good with me and I know I don't overstep boundaries, or if I do in certain things, not sexually but in different things, I would self-reflect and see what was right, what was wrong. So I trust my gut feeling now. And if I feel like, it depends actually on the guys, if I'm ready to date them. If the guy is respecting me, respecting my boundaries, showing me this, sometimes you don't know, you just know when you, I don't know, meet them several times. So how you really know a person. So then I just basically, when they stop, like when I feel like, okay, this guy gives me a vibe, okay, I can date him, okay, then if I really want to do it, I do it. And I think sometimes when I'm afraid, I just go for it instead of being afraid and not dating anymore, because I really love sex. And yeah, you just have sex when you're kind of dating, or you have sex with yourself. So I like having sex with men, so I'm gonna date eventually.
I mm, I don't think that there's an exact moment where you're like, in this moment in time, I know I'm fully ready to date. And just to piggyback off of what Alexandra said, you have to trust your gut, because you become more aware of people, their intentions, the type of energies that they present to you once you've gone through certain experiences. So you will never, I don't think, well, sometimes it happens, like what Stephanie said with her story, but sometimes you will never meet someone and you're like, I know that this person is who's good for me. You have to get to know them, and you have to depend on how that person makes you feel. Don't shrug off little bits of their personality that you're like, oh, I can overlook that. Because it's those little pieces that we overlook that eventually come back and haunt you. And I think just give yourself time, don't rush into being having made it out of like this depressive state that you're going through. And I think that's one of the things that I try to do at first is I told myself that I am through it and I can go out again. And it backfired because I haven't given myself enough time to really heal and accept that this will be part of my life forever. Although it's not going to be the main part of my life, it's still going to be a part of me. So until you accept that and learn to live with that, it'll be easier for you to date, And when you go out today, don't look for someone that's going to put you back together again, or someone that's going to fix you, because I think that is a loophole that a lot of people will fall into, that you're trying to find someone to hold you together and glue you back together. And that's not going to happen if you don't learn to hold yourself together. And then you just find someone that will hold you with yourself.
So, in my experience, I waited 2 years before I started dating again. And I knew I was ready because I stopped calling myself a victim. I stepped out of that identity and I was able to say, I've survived this. This is what happened. I did a lot of healing at the root cause of a lot of things, since I had prior trauma from childhood molestation. To be re-traumatized in my late 20s, I held a lot more guilt around that particular incident. And so, um, yeah, that was huge. It knocked me off my feet. So for 2 years, I had no interest in dating. I really wanted to cultivate a trusting relationship with myself again. And so I did do a lot of self care stuff. I learned more about the trauma and how, it can get stuck in my body. I just did a lot of work so I can get to that point. And fortunately for me, um, the guy that I ended up marrying knew me before the assault. but he still had some difficulties understanding some of my responses to things, and some of the triggers. And that was something we both had to work through together. And I'm fortunate that I had that opportunity, because I know some people don't. But yeah, it really boiled down to time and being willing to do the work, um, being open to going to different type of therapies. For me, sex therapy was a big deal. Um, Doing hypnotherapy, doing different type of modalities to start working on those negative emotions that you have towards sometimes yourself, and of course the person that took the power from you in some way. So um, yeah, I knew once I was able to step out of that victim identity that I was ready.
How do you know when you're ready to date again? Am I personally ready? No. Have I gone on dates already? Yes, I have. Um, I think what it is for me is I'm lonely, and I know I mentioned that I live with my family, but I don't get a lot of validation at home. Um, yes, they support me, but they want me to move on with my life already, and there's still a lot of work to be done. So I think what it is my emotional tank is empty. I want it to be filled again. I'm longing for company, security, protection. I these days I feel really unattractive. So it's like I need the attention or something. Um, Even the night of my assault, I wasn't even sure what had happened to me. I was confused. I called my ex-boyfriend, and because I think I I needed that feeling of I'm safe, I'm okay. If I heard his voice, I was gonna be like, okay, I'm protected. I'm okay. I don't know, something about having a man that you trust. It brings me that sense of security. But am I ready to date? I'm not. I can admit that, but there's still that longing feeling of wanting to be with someone. I know I have a long ways to go, but yeah, I wish I had somebody in my life that could validate what I'm feeling and also give me that sense of security.
I think there's never a good time. Just like there's never a good time to have a child, or never a good time to do anything. Like, really, it has to be, you have to follow your gut. Your 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 brain and your internal self knows how to protect you, and it's learned from experience. And so if you're talking about something and abuse comes up or trauma comes up, maybe that's the right time, and maybe it's not. And I think that's what you have to be okay with, that there isn't going to be a perfect time for it. There's not going to be, it's not a perfect science that if you say it on day 3 of knowing the person, then then that person will be your happy ever after. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. But I think the most important is being able to believe in yourself and believe in your story. I think a big problem that I still to this day struggle with is people telling me that what I dealt with is not a big deal, or that it didn't happen to me. And I think that is really painful to, no matter what, it's something called gaslighting, saying that your experience is not valid and your emotions are not valid. And the second you have a partner or a potential partner that starts saying that, that should be a red flag.
I totally usually tell it everybody, like every guy I'm dating, because I'm kind of want to see their reaction. And I had just lately experience where I met a guy again. I think, I don't know, 8 years ago. He was acquaintance from like the brother of my best friend. And he basically, I was telling him my experience and talking about rape. And he was like, what you kind of stories are you telling? And I'm just like, that's not a story. That is my experience. And he was like, I should stop talking about it. And I was just like, who are you to tell me which topic I pick for conversation? This is my decision. It's not yours. And right now I'm happy to have this self-love. I developed this self-love and it was a long way and I'm still working on it big time. So I really try to be my best friend because I'm the first person I see and the last person I will see in my life. And I'm the person who is always there for me. I learned, which is gladly because I didn't have such a good household growing up in. I learned independency and be with myself. And this helped me a lot because I can give myself a safe space and I can love myself and I can reward myself. I can tell myself, you're intelligent, you're smart, you're beautiful. I don't need no one to tell me because I know. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do, but that's not about it. I think it's about self-love, and it's not people telling you to stop talking about it is for me a big red flag. Maybe they did something, so they don't want to talk about it or hear about it, which is for me a big red flag. And they're not respecting your bodily autonomy, your autonomy of free speech. Doesn't matter which country you are, which law the country you are in has got, doesn't matter. For me, free speech, I can say what I want because, like, if I'm not insulting someone, of course, but and so I disclose it to every guy, also as a test. For me, it's a test. Like the first question would also be, are you a feminist? A lot of guys don't know what feminism means. They think it's something women do, but it's not. And it's the same with rape. It's something just done to women. This is not true. And I speak out against it, and I call people out who don't like me telling this because they are the problem. They are part of keeping patriarchy alive and oppressing people and making victims machines. So for me, I don't care about like that. I just speak up, and it took me a long time to do this because my parents didn't even believe me. So after this, I lost a lot of friends. I was slut shamed. I was victim blamed in court from my own lawyer. For my clothes, I should not look attractive in front of court. So I speak out against it. I'm done being silenced. Since I think 4 years. I feel like if I shout it out in the world, something needs to change. Because if we have so many survivors, where are the rapists? They are amongst us. So we need to call them out. And talking about it, we are calling them out. Yeah. But not everyone needs to call them out, okay? It's your choice. It's your choice what you do. It's your choice when you talk about. It's your bodily autonomy,
I think for me, it's hard to really know when to disclose because already from the beginning, when the assault happened, I confided in several people about what happened, and not a lot of those people have been as supportive. Some people asked, why were you out at night? Or what were you wearing? Or why were you drinking at that time? And like naturally, or at least academically, you know that these questions you're not obligated to answer these questions for. But subconsciously, you can't help but fall into that guilt trip that people set for you when you confide in them about your experiences. So it's even harder when you're trying to establish an emotional relationship with someone and you confide in them about something that happened to you, because again, like I think I said this before, it kind of sometimes, especially when you confide in the wrong person, it can come off as though you're seeking for that person to fix you, or it makes you vulnerable, and being vulnerable sometimes can take away the power that you have gained by trying to work through um, your experiences. So, like everyone else has said, it just depends on when you feel you're ready to share. You're not obligated to share your experience if you don't want to, and that's okay. But whenever you feel that you're comfortable enough with a person and you know how they think about these types of experiences, because I think it's best if you just have like casual conversations about these experiences and see where their mind is at. And then you will know, because already they share very harmful opinions on these issues, then you know that that's not a person that you want to be with. But when you realize that if they're more understanding or they're willing to learn, then that's a person that you might be able to speak to about your experience and trust that they're not going to shame you or silence you when you're trying to talk about something that's a really big part of your life.
So for me, there's like really no hard and fast rule about whether or not you have to disclose or not. But it boiled down to just trusting myself and my intuition on whether or not I chose someone that was um, going to be a support system that was willing to learn about the trauma and how certain things could trigger an emotional response for me, especially if it was in a sexual sense or a sexual um, matter. So, yeah, that's a big thing. As a survivor, you struggle with trusting of self, and if you can't trust yourself, how can you trust, your potential new partner? Um, it's really hard. I know when I did get in a relationship with my now husband, I knew I still had some things that I needed to work through. Um, but there would be certain things that shocked me, that would trigger me. Um, and I guess I'm not somebody that goes and tells everybody every um, detail about what happens to me, or what happened in that situation. I think only 3 people in my whole life knew all the details. Um, so what I think is you definitely need to disclose if you're in a partner or if you're in a relationship with a partner, that you feel like it's going to be a substantial relationship. Because if you don't and you have a incident that triggers you, um, it's going to be kind of hard to explain. Um, why are you crying? Why are you don't want to make them um, uncomfortable. I know that that's happened to me. My first experience losing my virginity, I had a really bad um, experience because I didn't know that it was going to trigger me. So, and I did not disclose that to my first sexual experience. And so, like I said, it's important that a disclosure is made. How much you want to disclose is up to you. That's your choice. But it is important that something is disclosed in case you have that trigger, so that everybody is comfortable and you can set boundaries about what you feel comfortable with doing and what you don't.
The first guy that I disclosed with, that I was attracted to, it was about a month ago. I remember we were setting up a, a hangout, and we were texting each other, like, oh, let's meet up. And he had suggested, oh, why don't you come over to my place and I can make us lunch or dinner whenever you want to come over. And immediately I panicked, because that's exactly how it happened when I was assaulted. I was invited over by a friend to go to his home, to have dinner, and was violated. So immediately when I saw those words come through, I was panicking, but I knew that I wanted to hang out with this guy, but I was obviously scared of doing that again, of going to a guy's home. Um, so I decided to disclose, and I shared with him, because it took me some time to actually respond to him. And so I disclosed it with him, and then I wasn't sure how he was going to respond to that. And he was very supportive, and we ended up hanging out. And when we met up in person, he ended up disclosing something that happened to him, a trauma that happened to him when he was a little bit younger. And so, wow, that made me feel such relief, like, oh, he had a similar experience in a different way. And then I went to hang out with a different guy, and I decided, it felt good disclosing. I'm going to share with this guy. So when I disclosed with this new guy, he ended up ghosting me, which was really sad, because I felt so good sharing with the other one that I felt like comfortable that I can do this, I can date again. And then when I shared it, he disappeared on me, this other guy. So I'm at a point now where I don't know what to do the next time I meet someone that I'm attracted to. Yeah, so we'll see when that comes. I'm sure it'll feel right for me if I need to disclose or not, but I'm honestly scared if they'll accept it, they'll support me, or they'll run away. We'll see.
I want to talk about triggers in general, because for me, coming from a childhood of different types of abuse, I get triggered in so many ways. Very, very commonly whenever I am interacting with someone who I believe is giving me feedback, or I believe they form an opinion on me, which is pretty much all the time. So one of the things that I'm trying to do for myself, and I also tell my partner to also tell me when I do get in those modes, is to tell me I am safe. That's it. You are safe, or I am safe, because my anxiety starts telling me to fight, to run away, to verbally try to save myself by telling the other person that they're wrong. And so that is a very important thing that I'm working towards, and working with my partner, of just the verbal confirmation of I'm safe. And then also asking, what emotion are you feeling? I've learned that throughout my life, I've started to dissociate my feelings, and I never learned how to express my feelings besides sadness and anger, maybe. So really looking at an emotions wheel and being very specific and trying to understand what am I feeling right now? That has been very meaningful. And for something that I think all survivors should know is, I think that you are not alone, and we all, everyone has triggers, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not better. It doesn't mean you'll never get better. It means that you had a trauma, and it's just part of living through and growing from that trauma is you have triggers. Maybe it'll take a long time. Maybe those triggers don't happen all the time, and that's wonderful, but they will happen. And you have to just be very loving towards yourself and know that it's not anything that you did wrong to have those triggers or to bring up those triggers. It's your body reacting from years, or just from a lot of time of experiencing that negative emotion and stress. It's not you, it's your body reacting.
I stop. I communicate that. Basically, usually the guys I'm sleeping with know this. So the guys it happened with were actually boyfriends. And yeah, I tell them, or I usually a panic attack is actually close. But even though when I don't have a panic attack, I stop having sex anyway because I can't. I get totally off if I have a trigger. Like, for example, one of the guys I slept with, like my ex, he had curly hair, lovely guy, but curly hair. And the guy who raped me had curly hair. And I touched the hair and I was like, oh God, this. And I stopped because I had a big fat panic attack because I thought I can do it, but no, I can't. I need to really follow how I feel. And, you know, if I get these pictures, and sometimes they are there and sometimes I can make them leave, but not if I keep on having sex. This is totally off for me. And yeah. So, yeah, that's it. I think if I would sleep with a man who doesn't know that somebody raped me and who would overstep my boundary, I would just fight immediately. Actually, it happened. One of my exes, he raped me, and um, basically I was hitting him on his dick really badly. So this is how I'm doing it. Apparently, when somebody would overstep my boundary, now I just freak out and fight like a, I don't know, machine, thanks to Krav Maga. So that's how I would react if someone would overstep my boundary, like #rape. Yeah, even in a relationship, it happens a lot, rape in a relationship, and they need really actively to seek my boundary if I really want it. Do I look like I have pain? Then probably don't want it. Am I silent? I don't want it. Do I not, it's empathy. Consent is fostering also empathy, and you don't need to say no. No is always the last instance, there are a lot of layers before no. I know is the last call, and when I was shouting stop 2 times, already the second time and he didn't, I punched, like I hit his dick really bad. So this happens when someone would do that.
This is not advice. It's just what I have experienced. Is so since my incident, there was a time I found myself in a predicament that I was. I thought to myself that if I consented to that, and because it was already in the heat of the moment, and I wasn't comfortable with it. But there were scenarios running in my head that if I said no in that moment, it could turn into something violent. So the only thing I could live with was that at least I had some power by consenting to it, as opposed to imagining even the slightest possibility of what could have happened had I said no in that instance. And I know that's like not like a healthy thing to do, but it kind of gives you some sort of control over the situations that you're in, or at least the illusion of control. And I would rather have that illusion that I had some sort of control over that scenario than entertain the thought that if I said no in that moment, when it was already in the heat of the moment, had I said no and something worse could have happened, that just the idea of that happening is way worse for me than consenting to something that I'm not entirely comfortable with, So
How do I best handle triggers during sex? I just go in with the knowledge that every sexual encounter can be different. And, it doesn't matter how long ago the sexual trauma or assault happened, triggers can come from out of nowhere. And so if you have a partner who, for me, of course, I have my husband, he's just aware, that, hey, if I say stop, stop. I don't want to have to go into why I'm saying stop, just I'm triggered, stop. So trust factor has to be in play with whoever you're with. Um, And yeah, I mean, triggers are going to happen, unfortunately. I had triggers that I didn't even know I had, like I had no idea. So um, just being okay with saying no, that's a big thing. If you don't feel comfortable, stop. Just stop and take a breath. And if you don't want to process it later with your partner, don't. But you do need to process it with yourself and kind of pinpoint, okay, this made me uncomfortable. This is not something I'm willing to do anymore. So, yeah, that's how I handle my triggers.
I have had sex 2 times since my assault. Um, both times were with my ex-boyfriend. Um, I am terrified of having a new partner. Just thinking about it actually gives me heart palpitations. Um, I think I keep going back to my ex because it's familiar. Um, we've always had a really great physical connection to each other, and I just feel really safe in his arms. So yeah, I don't know how I'm going to handle any triggers in the future. I am, like I said, I'm terrified of having a new partner, and how it would be. But um, it'll be interesting for when that day comes. So yeah, haven't had any triggers for sex yet.
I think all survivors should know that it's going to be okay. Whatever happens, you're going to be okay. Triggers are going to come up. Fear is going to come up. Pain is going to come up. But at the end of the day, the sun will come up, even in the worst days possible. You're gonna get through it because you're here today. To this day, you've made it through it. You've already made it one day. Sometimes it's taking it one day at a time, one date at a time when you're with a partner, and that's okay. I think so many times in society, we strive to focus about what's happening in the future. What are your plans? And sometimes we just need to take it moment by moment.
What I feel are all survivors should know, if they like, is that it's all about consent. And there are different layers before the last call called stop or no. So, you feel when a person usually doesn't want anything or if they're undecisive, and giving room to even say no. If I tell my boyfriend, are you really sure you want to be hugged? Because I feel like you don't want to be hugged and I don't know why, but I have the vibe. And then my ex was like, yes, I'm sure you can hug me. And I was like, I don't feel it. I don't see you so really happy right now. So what is it? So then I basically respected, I told him it's okay, you saying no. And then he was like, actually, I don't want it. And I was just like, yes, giving room to say no and practicing consent is really important also, for everybody, because then we would have not so many survivors of rape or sexual abuse in general. So, and what all they should know, it's a perpetrator's fault. And actually, I think personally, and also my campaign thinks, that the perpetrator should be under under the proof, they need to prove that they really were seeking for consent. There was consent, and it should not always be on the victim to be like, proving that somebody raped us. It should be on the perpetrator. And so it's a perpetrator's responsibility. And the whole rape myth and victim blaming, shaming, slut shaming, I was shamed in front, you know, in front of my lawyer shamed me being too attractive. So the serial rapist would get a lower sentence. And I was just like, this is blaming us. It's about what is in his mind. Is he respecting women? Did he learn to see boundaries? Does he even learn to have empathy, to care about people? Like, it's about the person, the perpetrator. It's not about us, and it should never be. So it's always the perpetrator's fault. So, and what also all survivor needs to know is really it's important, since you had such a big breach of all your boundaries and of your inner self, that for me, it helped me a lot to work on my self-love a lot, because I was close to suicide. So I think this saves you when you are. And so you can go out as a heroine, a hero, and not, you know, so eventually it takes a while. And I've been in different moods as well and situations, but yeah, you know, so the best thing is perpetrator's fault. We should also start at the language, not saying it's not your fault, it is the perpetrator's fault, you know, that's it.
So I think that you don't have to rush yourself into being okay. And sometimes it takes a while for you to confidently say that you have survived something. And I think, I don't know how to word this properly so it doesn't come out the wrong way, but there's this romanticized or glamorized idea of being a survivor. And not everyone makes it through, or makes it through easily, you know, because we'll hear a lot of stories where someone is like, I made it through, I had a support system, or I didn't have a support system, but I still made it through. You could have a support system and still have the hardest time accepting what has happened and learning to live with it. Just do it at your own pace. Don't start dating just to prove that you're overcoming it or you're okay now. You don't owe anyone some sort of success story. You know, it's all for you. If anyone is telling you, like Susie was saying, that you need to get on with your life, that's not someone that you need to be talking to or listening to begin with, because they have no idea. Like, even people that share these experiences, I don't think it's easy for anyone to confidently say, I know how you feel because I've gone through that, because we all react so differently to the experiences that we've had, with or without the biggest support systems. You are a complex human being with different reactions and emotions from everybody else. So don't rush yourself into being a success story of surviving this whole thing. Sometimes you don't survive it. You know, sometimes you'll go for years or months or days if you're lucky. And oh, that's a horrible word to use. But you know, you get what I'm trying to say. Just, you don't owe anyone a success story at a certain speed. Just do it at your own time and feel all your feelings. If you're going through a dark phase, don't watch a cartoon. You have to go through you have to go through these emotions in order to live through that experience. You can't skip a stage and just rush into being a hero of your story. It's okay to be a victim until you're ready to be a survivor.
So one of the things I think survivors should know is learning to extend yourself grace. Understand that healing takes time, and for some, you may not even know that you're stuck in like the victimhood of it. If especially like in my particular situation, because my trauma happened at an early age, I was unaware um, of how deeply it affected me until I got or turned the age of consent and really started dating. I had no idea that being physical with people would trigger an emotional response for me. So just giving yourself the grace being okay with it just taking a longer time for you to heal. And someone mentioned um, being okay with understanding that there's levels to it. You know, you might be in victimhood for a while until you're able to step into that survivor mode. So be okay with that. You don't have that support system. Some people do, some people don't. It's okay. Learning how to trust you is the biggest part, and the biggest thing that you can do for yourself. That self love. One of the big things for me was learning self forgiveness. Um, my big thing was, everybody always tells you to forgive the person that hurt you, but we tend to forget the biggest part, which is ourselves. So learning to forgive yourself. And my big thing was learning to forgive myself for staying in that victim mode for longer than what I needed to, and holding on to guilt that didn't belong to me. Those are the things I needed to forgive myself for. So once I was able to do that, the freedom that I feel now is boundless. So yeah, those are my things I think you should know.
So I feel like what everyone was saying really, I I could feel so much relation to it just because I'm just now starting to date. And I feel like I need all this advice. I feel like you guys are talking to me. Um, uh, I know I'm not ready to date because I don't love myself right now. Um, so this is what I want to share with other survivors is that it's important to have self-love before you can love someone else. Um, and I know I mentioned earlier the reason why I've started dating again is because I'm longing for companionship. I'm longing for that sense of security, and just having someone to trust. Um, so I have a lot of work to do. I look at myself and I feel like my assault and the process of reporting and investigation, and then my case getting dropped, I feel like it's aged me. I feel so unattractive. And I need to get back to a point where I love myself. And mm, I just I just want all survivors to know that you'll get there. It just takes time to work on ourselves, and sorry, um, you shouldn't have to depend on someone for your happiness. So definitely take the time to heal. Don't rush it. That's it.